What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look today at the newly renovated Ottawa Senators. So the Ottawa Senators have had a pretty interesting offseason, and the sentiment coming into this offseason was we were going to see some major changes for this team. They were no longer going to be acquiring draft picks and prospects for the future. This was a team that is going to start moving into the direction of making the Stanley Cup playoffs. And they haven't made the playoffs since, I want to say, that run they went to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's the last time they made the postseason. It's been a long time since then now, here in 2022. But the Ottawa Senators are destined to make a comeback. So they made a trio of moves that I'm going to talk about in particular, but we're going to take an overall look at the team in general moving forward. So let's get right into it. So we're going to start off with the first move they made, and that was their 7th overall draft pick coming into this year's draft. Pierre Dorion was very open that he was one of the guys in that top 10 that was willing to move his first round pick. And the Ottawa Senators were on board with that. The fans were on board with that. They've got enough prospects, but they needed a key player to add to their roster. And they were able to do that via trading the 7th overall pick. So this is the trade itself. The Ottawa Senators send 2022 first-round pick, which became the 7th overall pick, Kevin Korchinski, and a 2022 second-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick to the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for Alex DeBrincat. That was the big move to start this offseason for the Senators. They went out with a bang. So the Ottawa Senators moved the 7th overall pick. They also moved their second-round pick, and they also gave up a third-round pick in 2024. You see how they skipped a year. Nobody wants to give up picks next year, and I think there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that. But this is big for them, right? The Senators get a huge addition to their team, a guy that's a 40-plus goal scorer each season, really good hockey player on what hasn't been a great Blackhawks team. This is a huge addition for the Senators. But it comes at a catch. There is a catch to this, and that is Alex DeBrincat is on the final season of his $6.4 or $19.2 million contract that pays him $6.5 million per year. So the Senators have to re-sign him. Now, the good news is next summer, I believe, he's going to be a restricted free agent, which helps matters a little bit, right? He'll be a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. So in that sense, the Senators actually don't look too bad now, right? They have a little control over him, but it's going to be at a hefty price. We're projecting between $9 to $10.5 million per season on that next deal for the Cat. But that's not where things ended for the Ottawa Senators. So the Ottawa Senators, this was rumored, they were going to trade the 7th overall pick and Matt Murray to the Sabres in order to get out from Matt Murray's contract. That ended up being a good move. They ended up making a trade July 11th, just a few days after the draft, which sent Matt Murray to the Toronto Maple Leafs for future considerations. Now, the Senators did give up a decent amount of capital. Ottawa retained 25% of the remaining of his salary. And they also gave up a 3rd and 7th round pick to the Leafs. So the Leafs add some draft capital next year and in 2024. It didn't come at the price of the 7th overall pick, though. And I think that's a win for the Ottawa Senators because they didn't diminish the value of that 7th overall pick. They were still able to move Matt Murray, and they were able to trade trade for Alex DeBrincat. And you know what the other thing is here, too? Listen, looking at the Blackhawks' perspective of this, they were pissed. I mean, Blackhawks fans were very upset that they couldn't pull a Jacob Bernard-Docker or a Lassie Thompson or one of those younger guys on the roster from the Senators organization. They were just purely draft picks. So, that's something to consider here too. They were able to get out from Murray without giving up a 1st or 2nd round pick, and they also brought in Alex DeBrincat without trading any of their good young prospects, which is a huge win for them. That wasn't it though. The next day, Pierre Dorion made a trade with Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild Philip Gustavsson in a 1-for-1 swap. Philip Gustavsson for Cam Talbot. Now, Philip Gustavsson might end up being the better goalie, and if Senators fans will laugh at me because of the season he had last year, but he's still 24 years old. He's still extremely young, and it's going to be Philip Gustavsson and Marc-Andre Fleury next season. And then once Fleury retires, they'll probably have some kind of situation where Wallstead will come into the fold. Cam Talbot's on the final year of his contract, but the Ottawa Senators here, on a 1-year deal, get a very good goaltender. Much more reliable than Gustavsson and Matt Murray, and just a complete overhaul of the goalie tandem. I think it's a huge win for the Senators. Again, short term. Minnesota might win this trade in another 3 or 4 years if Gustavsson becomes a starter in the National Hockey League. But as of today, I do like this trade for the Senators. They want to win now, and I think they showed that by making that trade. Cam Talbot's a top-tier goaltender, especially in terms of like the Canadian teams. Ottawa definitely moved up, bringing in Cam Talbot. But that wasn't even it. They made another move. So in 3 consecutive days, they traded out Matt Murray, they brought in Cam Talbot, and they traded out Connor Brown and got value out of it. So Connor Brown is getting paid $3.6 million. He goes to the Washington Capitals for a 2024 second-round draft pick. There was no room for Connor Brown on this Senators lineup, unless you were going to pay, him almost $4 million to play in the third line, right? It just wasn't going to work out for him in Ottawa. Now you added Claude Giroux. You've seen some of the guys, the younger guys, probably going to get more ice time there. There's just not room for Connor Brown in the top 6. And like I said, why are you going to pay Connor Brown to play on your third line making $3.6 million? There's no need for that. And the Capitals get another addition at a price. I'm surprised they didn't ask for the Senators to retain anything on that. The Senators move out a contract, and they also acquire a draft pick. What happened to Pierre Dorion here all of a sudden? He's making some really, really good moves. So I really like that. And when you look at their lineup, I mean, this team is going to be interesting. Now, there's obviously flaws to it, and we're going to get to that in a second. But you look at their forward group. So their new top 6 has Brady Tkachuk, newly re-signed, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Alex DeBrincat, Claude Giroux, and Tim Stützle. So obviously the 2 new names there are DeBrincat and Giroux. Much improved. Much improved top 6, adding those 2 guys to this roster. And he's going to allow some of the other guys like Norris and Stützle and Tkachuk to maybe get some of the pressure taken off of them, because they were the only goal scorers in Ottawa. Now you've added guys like DeBrincat and Giroux to kind of spread the wealth a little bit. That's a win for them. Now their bottom 6 is very, not prospect heavy, but a lot of younger guys, right? You've got Parker Kelly, Alex Formenton, Shane Pinto, Dylan Gambrell. You could argue Matthew Joseph and Austin Watson. So the Ottawa Senators have a much younger group in the bottom 6, hoping some of those guys can develop and kind of work their way in to eventually taking over a Giroux, in 2 years to become a top 6 forward. And it might even mean they have to trade one of Shane Pinto or Formenton in the next couple years because they're ready to play in the top 6, right? But again, the Senators are ready to go now. Now, that's where their strength is their forwards, because their defense, although very good in terms of prospects, in terms of playing next season, their defense is lacking a little bit. So you've got Thomas Chabot, Travis Hamonic, Eric Brandstrom, Artem Zub, Jake Sanderson, and Nikita Zaitsev. I think that's a pretty good group overall for a rebuilding team, right? They're obviously lacking. There's some holes there. Definitely could use another top 4 defenseman and probably another depth defenseman. Now, here's the argument that people will make. Well, don't we want to play the young guys? Absolutely. You can make an argument that Brandstrom and Sanderson should absolutely be in the top 6 and maybe even in the top 4, which here, according to Daily Faceoff, they do have Eric Brandstrom as a second-pairing defenseman. But the right side is a little weak. I like Artem Zub, but Travis Hamonic, Nikita Zaitsev, if you want to be a playoff team, especially in the Atlantic Division next season, you got to have better depth than that. And that's just, when you look at what Toronto did with some of their depth additions. Tampa did. If you want to make the playoffs, you got to get deeper on the blue line. And that is my concern. Now, again, who is the depth? You could argue it's the prospects that'll come up next season. We'll see maybe, 10 to 12 games of Jacob Bernard-Docker, Lassie Thompson. We'll get to see those guys play in little portions throughout the season. And I think that's perfect for them. Their power play gets an improvement by adding DeBrincat and Giroux. Huge impact there. And now their new goalie tandem going into next year to cap this off is Cam Talbot and Anton Forsberg. I'm much more comfortable with that than I was with whether it was Philip Gustavsson or Matt Murray. The Ottawa Senators are trending in the right direction. The question is, how far will they move up? And obviously, I kind of baited you guys with the title of the video, but are the Senators good enough to make the playoffs in a Atlantic division that in that division alone, it's going to be very difficult, right? You've got Tampa, Toronto, Florida, who won the President's Trophy last year. You also have the Boston Bruins, who are still in the mix. The Buffalo Sabres are improving. Same thing for the Red Wings. The Atlantic division might be the best division in the National Hockey League next year. And that's a lot coming from a New York Islanders fan who cheers on the Metro. They might be the new top tier in terms of divisions in the National Hockey League next year. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Because for a while, it's been the haves and the have-nots. I think we're going to see a little bit of a cross-section and a little bit more parity in that division. Because on any given night, can Detroit win? Can Ottawa win? Can Detroit beat Boston? Can Ottawa beat Tampa? Can Ottawa beat Boston? Detroit? Buffalo? Who's the pecking order between, say, 3 and 7 in that division? What's the pecking order there? Because, we know who's at the bottom. It's probably going to be Montreal this season. But everybody else between 3 and 7 there's reason for debate there. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I don't think the Ottawa Senators will make the playoffs this year. But I like where they're going. I think they're one more year away with seeing regression maybe a year from now in Boston, in Toronto, maybe even Tampa. There could be a little bit more wiggle room. I think there's other teams in that division with the same mindset. So as we start to see teams maybe on the twilight of their cup window in Tampa, Boston, and maybe Toronto, depending on where things are at with Matthews and Marner and all those guys, you're looking at 3 guys looking to rise up the ranks in year 2. Not this year, but next year in Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think it's time for the Senators to get toward the top of the pecking order? Do you think they will be a playoff team? Or do you think, like me, maybe they're still another year away? Let me know what you guys think. Shout out to Ali Desh, my big Senators fan. Obviously, you guys are awesome. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.